I'm Will Bruder, FAIA. My firm is Will Bruder Architects in Phoenix, Arizona. Architecture is the making of memories for people. It's an arbiter for life. It allows people the freedom to see the world from a different point of view by their experience of sensory and sensual events in the environment. Architecture is about the inside out and the outside in. It's the spaces between physical architecture that make the city and are equally important to the physical object. The architect needs to be a really great listener. The architect is a person that should use his abilities not to present his own agenda of a style or a fashion or a way or a portfolio, but reaching deep into each problem to invent something that's appropriate to all the forces and impacts that are dealing with that problem. An architect needs to show up. And what I mean by that is that an architect has to be an active member of the community, because an architect has certain abilities about thinking spatially and thinking organizationally and thinking in process that has an awful lot to add to the public conversation about making community and place. An architect has to not be afraid to enter the conversation with the community because they possess sort of perspectives and skills of their experiences and their training that will allow people a better understanding of ideas before they experience the physical reality. All too often in the United States, we have a very temporal way of thinking about our built environment and our buildings and our materials. So I'm interested in trying to create new ways of thinking about materials that have a quality to be timeless while creating configurations or designs and inventions that are very celebratory of our time, because the great architecture, the timeless architecture, was always innovative and timely at its point of inception. And then it becomes the past, right? And so I think that's a really important thing to remember. And with the, we tend to, I believe in plan and motion and section. Whether materiality comes first or second, it's always driven by a totally interrelated set of consequences. And I think right now, the idea of scale and proportion in regard to the human being or the streetscape or the community or the landscape are very important lessons. And I think that a caution for young architects with great digital mastery of image making is that these are not animated movies for entertainment. These have consequences of how we experience, enjoy, and find success and wonder in the world. That's what an architect really is about as well. Networking is really about the conversation with the client, the conversation with the community, with the craftsman, with the engineer, with the entire team. It's presenting the intention of your ideas in the best manner you can, but engaging and having the respect of all players on the team, whether it's your assistants within the studio, whether it's your technical assistants as engineers, be it structural or mechanical systems, and having this thing that you're all very quickly trying to establish what the larger goal is of the intention of a design or an assignment, and not get caught up just in the form making or a particular aspect of it, and to keep questioning and challenging and asking. It's not looking for quick solutions that seem to be all conceived, and as you evolve through, then it's learning how actually the making it work or the resolve by calculation or assembly or detailing that evolves. There'll be a certain point when certain things that you thought you understood, you don't understand, and yet you try to cling to the resolve of an idea. And yet if the idea is integral to program and all these other things coming together in this sort of networked aspect, when it's not working, you have to be ready to throw it out and start over and go backwards to go forwards. And you can't be afraid of that. The importance of internet, I think, is the possibility to quickly go places. And that's also the danger of the internet. The internet has no scale. The internet has no reality. It talks naively about full scale, but it has no way to parallel things to each other. And it's really disappointing when you have a really great studio problem with a bunch of young students, and they pick and you assign various buildings that are relevant to the process. And you know anymore that what's happened is the night before the assignments due, all too often, it will be either a Google search or a Getty image search, and suddenly things are thrown on a piece of paper, and nobody has ever taken a journey to think about what the drawing means in regard to the photo that they think is of the building they thought of, and all of that value is somewhat lost because we're moving too fast. The internet makes us run too fast. The internet gives me too many emails each day that distract from my concentration and my ability to perform, because I have been assigned a responsibility by the fact of somebody pushing a key somewhere else on the planet, and suddenly 200 of these commands or demands come to my life every day. And it's a very hard tool to ignore. It's a very wonderful tool to have, but its mastery is ever a frustration. And I think that the speed of evolution that we see in the digital consequences of my life, the last 15 or 20 years of my life, the last 2 or 3 years, the last 2 or 3 weeks, is moving at such a velocity that I can't process evolution in the traditional sense of Darwin. I think you have to be optimistic but not naive. You have to be professional. You have to be both compassionate. Scratch that. You have to be both passionate, but your passion cannot preclude compassion for your client, for your work, for the community that it serves. And they're two different things. You can't take your focus or your obsession or your, if we want to say ego, or yourself to a point where it ever ignores, with its passion, its intensity, its drive. I think you have to create an environment around you where everyone is valued, and there is this positive resolve that while you know perfection is always something you must strive for, you have to accept that you can never achieve perfection. And if you can keep that balance, I think that makes for a healthy environment. You have to be this generator of the condition of this sort of vector of culture and time. Because what art does for us, and whether that's the art of architecture, or a painter, or a poet, or a musician, or a sculptor, composer, I think what art is about is it sort of represents our culture and our time as it presents a way for us to look at the world from a different point of view. And when we experience art, which I consider architecture to be, we always come away from it seeing possibility and not limit, and the way to journey, and it becomes the track of humankind into the future. Somebody that wants to be an architect should have a certain sense of curiosity about the world. Are they curious or not? Advice is, if you're not a curious person, you're probably not going to make a very good architect, because curiosity is inherent to creativity. And so I think that's really important.